You are now listening to another episode of Thoughts Over Coffee Daily with your host, Anthony Cass Clark. This is a daily podcast documenting the thoughts of the everyday entrepreneur. Let's get into it. Hey, what's up? Today is a very special episode, another episode lined up for you all. Had a very special conversation with my new friend, Tekisha, aka Keisha, of Canna Curious. She's a brand director over there, a growing brand on the verge of just pure greatness. Lots of cool things going on in the cannabis industry, and they are taking a very interesting route. So we had her down for a conversation over here at GP, General Provision, for a cup of coffee and a cup of water, and we spoke. So enjoy the conversation. Let me know what you guys think. Peace. Hey, what's up? It's your boy Anthony Cass Clark, and thank you for listening to another edition of Thoughts Over Coffee. Today we are here at General Provision, of course, my home, General Provision downtown. Shout out to the whole entire GP family. Tim, Patty, Taylor, Ben, everybody. What's up? So we're here with Tekisha, aka Keisha, of Canna Curious. You are the brand director, correct?
Yes.
Of Canna Curious. This interesting company. I'm doing a little research about it. And I found it interesting because of the state of the world that we're in with cannabis industry and also black culture, right? African American culture. So I found it really, really dope that you guys are filling such a space. So we'll get into that. But you know, that's the meat of the interview, or the conversation rather. Let's start from the beginning. Keisha, where are you from?
I was originally born in the Bahamas, but my family moved here when I was 1 to Fort Lauderdale, so I call Fort Lauderdale home. I've been here most of my life. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, moved to, when I went to college at FAMU, and then after that I moved to New York. I know, go Rattlers, go Rattlers. But after that, I moved to New York, where I started my career, and I, had aspirations of being like a fashion designer, but ended up working in the buying offices instead.
Nice.
I worked at Macy's, and then Coach, and then Ralph Lauren, and it was great. New York was fun.
How long were you in New York for?
I lived in New York for 7 years, and I was there through September 11th. And honestly, I don't think it changed after that, and... How
were you near the towers during September 11th?
I was in Midtown, and from where my office was, we could see the World Trade Center. We could see the planes hit.
Wow. We
could see the hole in the building. I saw the buildings fall down. And I lived in Harlem at the time, and I had like a 2-hour walk home that day.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Insane. Wow. Okay. So you're in New York. You're living the New York life, right? You're in fashion, right? That's like the dream, right? You're in the buying offices. What takes you back to Florida? Do you go to Florida next?
No. I had a couple states in between.
Okay, yeah, let me know.
From leaving New York, I just was I worked in the same kind of area for a long time, and I was feeling the need to do something different. Okay. I'm a person who, I think it was like the 7-year itch. After 7 years, I was like, I feel like I need to do something different. And I always wanted to go back to school, so I moved to Maryland. I went to the University of Maryland, College Park. Maryland, yeah, home of the Terps. I went there full time because I was like, I just don't want to work for a while. So I went to school full time, graduate school, got my MBA, and from there transitioned to consumer packaged goods. And worked in brand management for a couple years there. And
so what inspired you to leave fashion and then go into consumer brand packaging? Like what?
It's funny because I worked in luxury pretty much up until then my whole career, and I felt like a lot of things I did people couldn't relate to. I was like, when I was working at Ralph Lauren, I was working with the purple label, the collection label. Right. Things that were like $3,000 price points, handbags. And people understood it from a high level. It just felt like I was out of touch with a lot of things. And I've always been really interested in consumer behavior and why people do what they do. And with packaged goods, that's something everybody uses. We all, use tomatoes or ketchup or Ready Whip, and those are some of the brands that I worked on in my next job. And I just felt like it was time for a change, and I just learned so much more about being a general manager of a brand through that experience. And I just thought it was my brain is always looking for to continue learning and expanding.
Yeah.
And so that was just the next step.
Yeah, we share similar minds in that sense. I'm always going from here to there, right? Like I always tell people, I have like a 5-year plan in my head, but that could easily go left or right whenever I decide. I might just wake up one day and say, you know what, that's interesting. I'm going to dive into that, you know?
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's
I think
okay.
we're taught to kind of follow one path.
100%.
And one of the things I learned later in life is that, you know, there's someone who coined this phrase, multi-passionate creative. And I was like, that's me. Like, I draw. I used to teach Zumba. I feel like there's not just, if you have these callings to do these different things, go and do them. Why not? That
Right.
like makes your life more enriching.
Exactly, right. I haven't told anybody this, so you're the first person. I'm going to become a chef.
Okay.
Next. That's my next ambition. I want to become a chef and also a barista.
Yeah.
I don't want to work doing it, but
I mean, I'm a secret mixologist. COVID made me a mixologist.
Listen.
So all the alcoholic drinks.
All right, listen, you might get a phone call. Listen. All right. So, okay. So you're working in a new field, right? And you're doing that. And then prior to us speaking, you were telling me before the cameras were on, you were saying you're an accidental entrepreneur.
Yeah.
What does that mean and how?
I mean, I think I basically worked for 16 years in corporate America. So that's where I knew what to do. You know, I know how to get a job. I know how to manufacture, you know, how I want my work to be while I'm there. I know how to like matriculate the system and deal with the politics. And it's like everything's kind of laid out for you in a corporate setting. You just kind of have to follow a path within it.
Right. 100%.
I think I always knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. Like my dad had a store when we were growing up, and he worked a full-time job, but he also had a store. And,
What kind of store?
a little grocery store.
Okay.
So it's funny, I ended up working for like a food company. But it was just something that I just never thought I could do it myself. So when I left corporate America, the first thing I did was I went to Africa. I was like, within a month, I was on a plane.
Wow.
And I was in Kenya.
Wow.
On safari.
Beautiful.
And then just like that continent is special. And from there, I did a 30-day co-working retreat with this group that basically brings together people from all over the world, and they give you housing and you do some workshops. And it was there that I actually met all these people doing different things. So some people were on sabbatical, some people were just working remotely, some people had their own companies, their own businesses. And that's when talking to these different individuals gave me the idea that what I learned in 16 years in corporate and branding and marketing and, general management, I could be consulting people on my own and kind of redirect that skill set into a new area. So from there, I started TH Consulting. So I basically help...
Your initials.
Yeah, keep it easy.
Yeah.
I basically help food... it started with just food and beverage brands and beauty brands, because that's, again, where my skill set was,
Right.
helping them with brand and marketing strategies.
Nice. Okay. So now you're on an entrepreneurial journey, right? Did you decide, like, this is what I'm going to do and I'm not going back to corporate? Because most people I find that leave corporate leave with, like, this sour taste in their mouth, and they feel like, oh my God, I've been tricked, you know? And then they go into the entrepreneurial journey. Is that somewhat how you felt?
I do. I agree. Like I was, I think I was just burnt out first and foremost. So what I did before I left was I knew I was leaving probably 18 months before I left. So I was like, okay, but I'm a planner.
Right.
I was scared to not have money. So I just started stacking money.
Good job.
Started saving money, stopped buying stuff, unnecessary stuff. And it's amazing, like, you realize all the stuff that you buy that you don't need.
100%.
Like, so, and you can save so much more money. It's like, do I want these shoes or do I want to work another month and not quit? You know? So it was like, I saved a significant amount of money so that I could live comfortably, because I had grown accustomed to a lifestyle. It was like, I can't go all the way back to ramen noodles.
Right.
Even though I still eat them because I like them.
I can't do it. Sodium's crazy.
Every once in a while, just drink a lot of water. So I saved enough so that I could still live comfortably and, but still like not work for at least a year.
Right.
And when I started traveling and going to all these different countries, and I would basically stay in them for a month or 2 months, the cost of living is so much lower that I ended up like extending that money for like a year and a half. And so that was, and through that time, I feel like I was like decompressing from the corporate lifestyle. And it was a shift, because you're used to getting up every morning at the same time working. You want to feel like you are productive.
Right.
And so when you're after working for so long and then you stop working, you're like, am I a bum? Like,
yeah. You
like,
feel strange because you feel out of place.
Yeah.
It's like you've been trained to do this thing, right? It's work. I work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. This is the schedule, Saturday and Sunday, you know, and then when you're at home on a Tuesday and everybody else at work, you're like looking around like, is somebody gonna get me? Like, am I going to jail? Like, you feel guilty in a sense, you know? And it shouldn't be like that, right?
It shouldn't. We are so trained to like work, like die.
Yeah.
And there's a big gap in between. And part of that, actually, I think people should take breaks while you are younger. It's not just work until you retire and then your knees don't work and you're trying to travel, but you can't go because you can't climb. So it's like better to have these breaks and do them while you're young. And I always tell people, like, sometimes if you don't work for 3 months, it's like in the grand scheme of all the days of your life, 3 months is not a long time.
Right.
A year is not a long time.
Right.
You know, you can go back into corporate, you can find a new path. For me, that path was literally starting different businesses. And I started 3 in that time. Because I think once you figure out, okay, the first one's not so bad, it's okay. You give yourself permission. It's not always about achieving. For me, it was like, it's not about achieving. It was about accomplishing what I set out to do in terms of, I want to explore this area. It seems interesting.
Right. So
let me see what I can do.
Right. Tell me a little bit about those 3 businesses. So you have TH Consulting.
TH Consulting was the first one. So after that, I started working at General Provision, actually.
Oh, really?
And at the Fat Village location.
Oh, okay.
And it was there was a CBD company that was using office space there. And I was like, this is interesting. I want to get into this space because coming from consumer packaged goods, I'm like, this is going to be the next big consumer packaged goods industry. And I was like, I want to learn about this. And I actually did a project with them. And then I started working with a former coworker, had a cannabis consumer insights company. And so that's how I got into cannabis. So we were doing market research with cannabis consumers.
What year was this? How early was this?
This is 2018.
Okay.
So just a couple years ago.
Okay.
And we were doing focus groups and surveys and consumer product testing, really just talking to consumers and patients of medical marijuana about their experience, how they're using it. And that really started to change my mind about it and really thinking, okay, it's not about getting high, it's about people are using this for wellness.
Right.
And through that process, I worked in Chicago for a little bit and attended an infused dining event.
I've heard of these.
Which is really cool. So that leads to my second business. So I was like, I want to do one in Florida, and because there's nothing like that. I'm tired of all the cool events being in New York or Chicago. So I started one. I had a friend that, a friend introduced me to her friend who was a vegan chef. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool to do a vegan brunch?
Oh my God.
Like an infused vegan brunch.
Yeah, right.
Right. And
Off the
so
charts.
Literally from idea to execution, 4 weeks.
That's what I'm talking about. I love it.
Had a designer, created a logo, put up a website, sold tickets.
Wow, 4 weeks.
Got an event. And I think it was, the thing was like, that was such a great experience for me because it was like the doors kept opening. So it was like, okay, I'm going in the right direction. Like people kept helping. I was like, I'm not an event person. I don't know how to put on an event. I know how to brand an event. I know how to, market an event.
Right.
But it was just like the idea was there and the right help came in at the right time. And 4 weeks later, we had an event. And then COVID hit. Because that was like January 2020, we did that.
How'd it go?
It was really good. And hopefully we can do another one in April. But basically that kind of was put on pause, obviously due to the pandemic and safety issues, et cetera.
Of course.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So when does Canna Curious come into play?
So last year, in the pandemic, so my work with the consumer insights company kind of dried up because, again, we were doing product testing. We're in person with people, focus groups. So pandemic hits, that work kind of dried up. And so I went back I always kind of had some clients on the side with consulting, but that was really slow. And I was, 2 other my co-founders actually worked at General Provision. We all kind of started at the same time in the beginning of 2018. And we always wanted to do something together. And so one was a writer, Tekisha Harvey. She's a writer, editor, done so many great things. And the other is Deanna San Miguel, and she is a creative director, graphic designer, who runs her own business. And we were like, what can we do? We wanted to do a product, and originally we were thinking about, maybe we could do like a CBD tea for women, when you have like PMS, it's great for cramps and things like that. But then we're like, okay, well that involves actually finding someone to produce it, like all of that. Exactly. And then the laws around hemp, while it's legal, there's still a lot of hurdles to jump.
A lot of red tape.
Yes. So we're like, Deanna actually said it. She's like, how about we do a magazine? And we just do something targeted to women, because from my experience looking at, what was out there, the landscape, it was either very stoner type, very like male focused, or very business oriented. So there's a lot of magazines around like the business of like cultivating, growing, extracting, or it was like medically focused. So there was nothing really kind of speaking to women in an approachable manner to kind of educate them on the benefits of cannabis and CBD. So we're like, let's create it.
Wow. So why a magazine, right? In 2021, right? Like magazine shelves are not like a thing anymore in New York. And back in the day, like I was just watching the Biggie documentary last night. Excellent documentary, by the way. Check it out. But they were talking about Source Magazine, right? Source Magazine was it.
Source Vibe.
Yeah, Source Vibe, XXL. If you were in those magazines, like you were a star immediately, right? Like magazines held weight, literally.
Yeah.
So in 2021, where everything is digital focused, where does the magazine fit, right? Where do you guys see Canna Curious fitting?
So it started as a magazine because my co-founders had experience with magazines, and we said we started digitally to keep costs low, but also because it was a place to kind of showcase beauty and design. And we know like women like aesthetics and having things being really pretty and beautiful. So it wasn't just like a magazine that's just about like hard content. We wanted to have almost like a showcase piece. And so our original plan was to do 3 issues a year. And 1 print issue, which we're actually working on right now for 420. And that would be...
Which one's this?
This is actually... I have a printed version that you're looking at right now that we printed literally just for PR purposes.
It's beautiful, by the way. Yeah.
And people, once we printed the samples for ourselves, we're like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Like, people need to see this. And actually some of the feedback we got from people with the digital version was, I wish I had a hard copy so I can just kind of flip through it instead of just always going back to my screen. And speaking of 2021 now, and where everything is digital and on screen, people are getting tired of looking at things on screen.
I agree. I agree, right? So like, in my opinion, for magazines, if you do a mag, like there's plenty of opportunity for growth there. It just can't be the normal mag. It has to be really beautiful. It has to be great, right? Like I know someone who's doing a magazine for hip hop, but it's like a hard cover in a sense. It's beautiful. It's a coffee table. You put it on your coffee table. It's not going anywhere. You want to subscribe. So it's
timeless.
It's timeless. Exactly. Right. I started my magazines from early 2000s. Literally a cardboard box full.
Are you a hoarder? Sorry, too soon?
No. A little bit. I'm a little bit of a hoarder. But that's phenomenal. And I want to talk about, because you all are female founded, of course, and you all are women of culture, right?
Yeah,
right? Black
I like
women.
that, women of culture.
Women of culture, right? And so where do you guys see, because we know there is a problem, right? Cannabis and black culture, right? We can talk about the crack epidemic in the 80s, and there's plenty of people sitting in jail for an ounce of weed for doing 20 years in prison, right? And then now we see big money starting to come into the cannabis industry, right? You see the stocks are going crazy right now, right? Tilray and I forgot the other company's name, Altria or Aurea, whatever. Don't kill me, guys. They're merging to become the biggest cannabis company, on the planet, right? Next week sometime. So all these things are happening, but it seems like we're being left out in a sense, right? We were early. We were early to the stage, but hey, we were penalized for it. And now I feel as though it's going to, a lot of red tape is being involved, right? For example, you were talking about getting into hemp and getting into CBD. There's a lot of things you have to go through to even get in there. So how do we get the advantage, and where do you guys see yourselves in this business, right? Because you got double thing against you, right? You have 1, African American, and then 2, women, right? Because like you said before, male focus, very
Yeah.
bro culture,
Yeah.
very hey dude culture. So
It's interesting in cannabis. There is an opportunity in this emerging industry to kind of level the playing field, and it's happening. It's not absolutely not completely equitable, and there's lots of work that's being done to ensure that people of culture who have been negatively impacted at a higher rate do have the opportunities, and there's a lot of social equity work happening in the space. Now that is, a lot of people think all the opportunities actually in the plant touching aspects, like growing hemp or cannabis, but that's only about 35% of the business. Like 65% of it is all these ancillary businesses around cannabis.
Right.
So one of the biggest things and opportunities, one of the biggest opportunities that I saw was in education. Like people still don't know, even with CBD, people think CBD gets you high, and so education is a main factor in letting people, getting people actually to know more about the industry, about the plant, and kind of to reduce that stigma. And so that's part of what we're doing with the magazine is like, okay, we don't have to be plant touching. We didn't have to create a product from hemp or CBD or from cannabis. We can actually create a publication. It's actually just starting as a publication, but it's going to be expanded to beyond that. We see it as bigger than this, because the angle that we're taking of focusing on women who are Canna Curious. So there's people who are just, again, they're on that line of like, I want to know more, I'm interested, but I don't know where to start. And then there's people who are very acculturated to cannabis, and they know down to the strains and the terpenes and what works for them.
Those people, I'm like, whoa.
And it can be very intimidating.
Very intimidating.
Especially if you go into a dispensary and adult use markets where anyone can go into a dispensary in Colorado or California, and now Illinois and
Detroit, correct?
in Michigan. There's 11 states where it's recreationally legal, and I think 4 more as of the 2020 elections added to that. And I think New Jersey actually just went a couple weeks ago, recreationally illegal. So when you go in there, it's kind of intimidating. It's like going to the bar for the first time and someone saying, even the coffee bar, because I struggle with this because I just started drinking coffee like 2 years ago.
Hey, congratulations.
And I'm like, I don't know what all these things are. So it's funny, I'm on the coffee break.
Congratulations.
But I do drink coffee now. But so it can be intimidating. So giving people a place where they feel comfortable to get educated, to learn about other women's stories and how they're using it to reduce that stigma. So people are just associating it with kind of, the war on drugs. Right,
indeed. Yeah, that's interesting. I love it. I love it. Just talking about those spaces that you can feel other than the traditional, hey, I gotta grow, I gotta
there's
cultivate.
Accessories, there's all types of things. Even people who are like going into the light bulbs for the grows.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
It's just a vast amount of opportunity.
Wow. I speaking to my brother, right? He's Canna Curious, right? And he was speaking to me because he's really into the industry. I'm not. He was telling me, he was like, man, I'm really thinking about how to get into the industry. I was like, my marketing brain started working. I was like, maybe you should come up with, a product for. We were talking about. Hey, listen, do not steal my idea. All right? If you listen to this, do not steal. Do not steal my idea. So we were talking about phone cases.
Yeah.
Right? And phone cases with a slip on the back where people can hold their, their accessories.
Rolling paper.
Yeah, exactly, right? Moving forward, what's next for Canna Curious?
So we haven't even hit 1 year yet, actually, and it's been great because like the momentum that we've been able to achieve, but right now, because of the interest that we have in the magazine, we've actually gotten interest from Barnes & Noble to actually carry the magazine, a printed version. Like I said earlier, we were only going to do one print magazine a year and then the rest digital. So now we're reconsidering that and also going to doing it quarterly, like 4 times a year instead of 3 times a year. We would love to get to conduct webinars and do more workshops for women in particular. Again, things that we were talking about earlier that people have some hesitation around cannabis and CBD, but like basically breaking down the stigma, explaining more about the parts of the plant, how it can help them. We even talked about doing like a joint rolling class. So even though cannabis in Florida is only medically legal, we do have our audience spans the entire U.S. because when you have it digital, obviously anyone can have access to you.
That's amazing.
So we want to do workshops. We also want to eventually put on a conference. When the world opens back up.
We'll just move to Texas.
I mean, we already live in Florida. It's technically open. So. But yeah, have a podcast. Just find more areas for education for women. So basically creating as many avenues as we can with our platform to really talk to the Canna Curious woman.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm thinking about all the different women in my life who would like love this brand. You know, a Canna Curious dinner, they would be there in a jiffy.
I mean, eventually we could even develop products.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested to see the growth in this brand and this magazine, because you know, just reading about it and looking at what you guys have done thus far, I was intrigued, super intrigued.
Nice.
So it's gonna be really exciting. Where can people find you and also the brand?
Okay, so if you want to follow me, myself, it's Tekisha Harvey. It's Tekisha Harvey on Instagram. That's also my website, tekishaharvey.com. For the brand Canna Curious, we are at Canna Curious Mag on Instagram. Also, that's our website it's cannacuriousmag.com. And we're also on Pinterest. And you follow everything that we're doing. Sign up for our email list. We give you a nice little gift when you sign up for our email list.
Nice.
And just stay on the lookout for more. We have some merch that's going to be launching. We're going to be pre-selling the actual 420 issue, the April issue, which is going to be chock full of goodness. It's going to be a bit longer than our previous 2 issues, and we just have some really good content in that issue. It's beautiful. And so you can, on our website, it's not up yet, but it will be, where you can pre-order the next magazine.
Are you guys ready to be the coolest women on the planet? Because I feel like this is going to happen.
I mean, I hope so. You know, we created this little baby. We feel like we birthed the baby, and now we're trying to raise it.
Yeah.
You know, we're still in our infancy though. But I think that based on the response that we've received, there is like nothing but growth opportunities.
Yeah. Well, you have my full support if that means anything. I'm here for sure. All right, I got one last question for you, and then we'll wrap up. Okay.
Yes.
I know you've only been drinking coffee for about 2 years or so, but I'll still ask you the question. When you wake up in the morning, right, and you make that first cup of coffee, take the first sip, what's the first thing that comes to mind? What do you think about?
That's a good question. The first thing that comes to mind, it's usually just like inhaling the smell of it. I do instant coffee, don't judge me.
All right.
I know.
It's
okay.
It's okay.
I had to represent for the beginners because, again, we talk to beginners, and there's no shame.
There's no shame on this podcast. You're right.
So when I take my first sip, I really just inhale the aroma of it, and I feel the warmth, trickle down, and I just know, all right, let's get started. I think that's my first thought.
Yeah, I like that. Let's get started. So, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening to the podcast. Like and subscribe to the YouTube, please. Also, share the podcast, rate 5 stars on podcasts, on Apple, it's on Spotify. Anywhere you listen to this podcast, please rate and review. I thank you guys so much. And always, Tekisha, I know you only have your cup here, but we'll do it. Peace, blessings, cheers.
Cheers.
Peace.